Peter thought his marriage was perfect until he discovered secret messages between his wife and her black boss. Fueled by jealousy and suspicion, he storms into the office, ready for a confrontation. But what he uncovers is far more shocking than an affair. The truth forces him to confront his own demons, turning the man he saw as a threat into an unexpected ally. What really happened behind closed doors? Stay tuned for a twist that will leave you speechless. The autumn rain streaked the windows of Peter Voss's apartment overlooking the Prinsengracht Canal in Amsterdam, a city alive with the clatter of bikes and the glow of golden leaves. At 40, Peter was a man who thrived on order. His tech job managing cybersecurity systems, his minimalist home with its sharp lines, and above all, his marriage to Millenni. She was 36, a nurse at the sprawling Amsterdam UMC hospital, her soft smile and gentle hands a quiet counterpoint to his rigid world. For 12 years, he'd shaped her life. Where she went, who she saw, what she wore, believing it was love, protection. Lately, though, she'd pulled away, her eyes distant, her phone buzzing with secrets. Peter knew why. It was him, Dr. James Okoye, the black senior physician she worked with. The thought ignited a fire in his chest. He'd found the texts 2 nights ago, sneaking a look while she showered. They were vague, but damning. Thanks for being there. I don't know how to do this alone. No explicit proof, but his mind painted the picture. Millenni laughing with James in a break room, their shoulders brushing, her slipping from Peter's grasp into the arms of a man he'd never met, but already loathed. Jealousy consumed him, tangled with a darker thread, assumptions about James, his race, his audacity to encroach on Peter's territory. He didn't question it. He acted. The hospital loomed ahead as Peter marched through the drizzle, his coat flapping, his breath sharp. It was late afternoon, the lobby a blur of white coats and hurried footsteps. He demanded James's location from a flustered receptionist, 3rd floor, Clinic B, and ignored her protests as he stormed the stairs, his pulse hammering. He'd confront them, catch them in the act, prove he wasn't a fool. Millenni would see. She belonged with him, under his roof, his rules. Dr. James Okoye's office was a cramped nook off the bustling corridor, its door ajar. James stood inside, reviewing a chart, his white coat pristine over a navy shirt. He was tall, mid-40s, with close-cropped hair and a steady gaze that met Peter's as he burst in, slamming the door behind him. "You're James?" Peter barked, his voice echoing off the walls. James set the chart down, unfazed. "Yes, and you are?" "Peter Voss, Millenni's husband. We've got a problem." James's eyes flickered with recognition, but he didn't back down. "All right, what's this about?" "Don't act innocent," Peter said, stepping closer, his fists clenched. "I know about you and her, the texts, the late shifts, sneaking around behind my back. I saw it all. It stops now." James leaned against the desk, crossing his arms. "You think we're having an affair?" "I know you are," Peter snarled. "She's been off, quiet, hiding things. You're the reason." James studied him for a long moment, then sighed, pulling a chair from the corner. "Sit down, Peter. You're wrong, but you won't hear me unless you calm down." Peter's jaw tightened, but he sat, the chair creaking under his weight. James sat too, his voice low, measured. "Millenni's not cheating. She's been talking to me, yes, but not like that. She's terrified. Of you." The words landed like a blow, knocking the air from Peter's lungs. "Terrified? That's absurd." I don't hurt her. Not physically, James said. But your control, your rules, your suspicions, it's crushing her. She told me she feels like a prisoner, too scared to speak up. She's not cheating. She's trying to survive. Peter's mind reeled. You're lying. She'd never say that. She did, James replied, pulling out his phone. He scrolled, then handed it over. Texts, pages of them, from Millenni. He tracks my shifts. I can't breathe anymore. I'm afraid he'll never let me go. No romance, just raw, desperate pleas. Peter stared, the screen blurring as his hands shook. This isn't real. It's real, James said, taking the phone back. She confided in me because I've seen it before. Patients, colleagues, trapped in silent hells. I listened. That's it. Peter's throat closed. He wanted to shout, to deny it, but the words stuck. Millenni, his Millenni, afraid of him? He'd thought he was shielding her, keeping their life secure. But the truth crashed in. He'd built a cage, not a marriage. Why didn't she tell me? He rasped. She tried, James said. You didn't listen. Too busy guarding your kingdom. Peter's chest heaved. So what now? You're her hero? I'm the monster? No, James said. You're her husband, and you can still change, if you're willing. But it's on you. Peter stumbled out into the rain, the canal lights smearing into streaks as he walked home. Millenni wasn't there. She'd texted about an extra shift, a lie he now saw for what it was. Escape. He collapsed onto the couch, the apartment's silence deafening. He replayed James's words, her texts, his own actions. He'd never raised a hand, never yelled, but the control, checking her phone, timing her outings, questioning her every move, was his. His jealousy, his snap judgment about James, rooted in a prejudice he'd never admitted, had twisted it all. The next day, he called in sick and searched for a therapist. Dr. Lena Visser was a no-nonsense Dutch woman with gray hair and a piercing stare. You've been a tyrant, she said, in their first session, her accent sharp. Love isn't a leash. You want her back? Unmake yourself. He hated her bluntness, hated the mirror she held up, but he returned. Twice a week, then 3. Lena peeled back his layers, a childhood under a domineering father, a mother who faded into compliance. Peter had learned strength as domination, trust as surveillance. Undoing it was agony, tears, sleepless nights, journals filled with guilt. He wrote Millenni a letter, raw, unpolished, apologizing, promising change. Left it on her side of the bed. She didn't respond, staying with a friend, but she didn't file papers. A sliver of light. A month later, he saw James again, by chance, at a cafe near the hospital. Peter hesitated, then approached. Can I sit? James nodded, sipping his coffee. How's it going? Hard, Peter admitted, staring at the table. Therapy's brutal. She's still gone. Give her space, James said. She's rebuilding too. Peter swallowed. I thought you were taking her because of... He stopped, shame choking him. Because I'm black? James finished, his tone calm. I figured. It's not the first time. But I'm not your rival. I get that now, Peter said. I was wrong. About you. About everything. Thanks for helping her. James shrugged. She's worth it. You could be too. Months dragged on. Peter kept at it. Therapy, reflection, letting go. He stopped monitoring Millenni's life, deleted the tracking app he'd installed years ago. He volunteered at a community center, teaching kids coding, seeking something beyond himself. One night, Millenni came home, not to stay, just to talk. Her hair was shorter, her eyes guarded, but she sat across from him as he spilled his regrets, his efforts. "I want to be different," he said. "Not just for you, for me." She didn't hug him, didn't promise anything, but she said, "Keep trying. We'll see." He did. James became a quiet ally, coffee meetups turning into real conversations about trust, fear, strength. Peter learned James had grown up in London's rougher edges, faced his own fights with bias, yet chose empathy over anger. It reshaped Peter's lens, showed him power wasn't control, but connection. A year passed. Millenni moved back, slowly, testing the waters. They rebuilt, no rules now, just honesty. Peter quit his high-stakes job, took a teaching gig at a tech school, traded tension for peace. One evening, they invited James for dinner. Laughter filling the apartment. No ghosts between them. The man Peter had demonized was now a friend, a guide who'd helped him see. Amsterdam sparkled outside, the canals reflecting a city in motion. Peter held Millenni's hand, lightly, freely, feeling the weight of trust. He wasn't whole, not yet. Old habits lurked, whispering in weak moments. Could he sustain this? Could he face a world still ripe with suspicion, his own included? James clinked his glass. "To new beginnings." Peter smiled, raising his. "To earning them." Millenni squeezed his hand, a small, real gesture. The rain had stopped, the night clear. The story wasn't finished, not for them, not for him,